126 of the Secundae. The topic for this lecture is fearlessness, and I am Dr. Thibault. So we're dealing with a fairly short section this time. We're dealing with fearlessness, which only has two articles to it. We have three vices, which are opposed to fortitude. We're on the second one, fearlessness, which is the deficiency of fear when it comes to the proper means for fortitude. Fortitude is to give us the courage and the strength to persevere through the irascible appetites and to meet our proper end. That's the goal of fortitude. So fearlessness can get in the way. It's very easy to see how fear gets in the way of us pursuing our goals. This is kind of straightforward. If you're on a journey somewhere and fear comes up, you might turn around and go back. But how about fearlessness? It seems like you might rush through and get to your end faster. Well, it depends, right? So depends on some. So if a person is not has no proper fears, ordered fears, it can get in the way of certain things. So one should, looking at the hierarchy, be most concerned about the soul, most concerned about divine things. If one were not fearful of violating divine things, one could go wrong. So this often comes more in the form of concupiscence. But if one doesn't fear the Lord, have awe of the Lord, then why would you try to aim for heavenly things? If one wasn't worried about the purity of one's own soul, then why stay chaste? Why repent? Right? What is the point of repenting unless you have some healthy, properly ordered fears? Fear causes us to healthy, right? Ordered fear causes us to pause, to give reflection, to look for insight, to make appropriate changes. Fearlessness just charges straight forward. Fearlessness doesn't have time for reflection. Fearlessness is, in some sense, a deficiency of fear, but an excess of energy, right? It moves without properly considering the proper order. That one must first worry about the divine, then worry about the body, and then worry about things. Right? Some people within business, for example, entrepreneurs, they might worry more about money than they do about their soul or their body. They charge for it. And then a Wall Street model where you might not have time for prayer or church because you're making money. You might not take care of your body, exercise and eat well and be healthy, avoid excesses of drugs and alcohol, right? You're only worried about the money. So fear is sometimes helpful. So fearlessness would be means of not hitting the golden means, right? Excess or deficiency. Now, fearlessness. It is therefore evident that fearlessness is a vice, whether it results from a lack of love, pride of soul, or dullness of understanding. Yet the latter is excused from sin if it be invincible. So St. Thomas gives some examples in this within Article 1. So if a person lacks the proper loves, and again, the loves go in the ordered sense from the previous slide, a person can go wrong, right? If they love material things more than spiritual things, they'll go wrong. But also if they just have a lack of love, right? If there is no love at all, if one doesn't love one's own life, one doesn't love one's own flesh, or if one seeks release from suffering more than they do, uh, more than they love their own life, they'll commit suicide, as St. Thomas points out. Um, so a lack of love in the right proportion could lead to somebody being fearless, not having proper fear or boundaries when it comes to certain things. Uh, Pride of soul is an interesting one. I don't normally hear it called this way, but if somebody is just too bold, too brave, this ties into the next question as well with daring. If one is too self-confident, that can be a pride of soul. Maybe an example of this, and this is just a completely hypothetical situation, not based on a particular case. A soldier of some kind who just rushes right into gunfire and explosions um, to fulfill whatever task. Fearless, right? Completely fearless. Um, but if it's just like this confidence, a sense of like, if one is overly confident in oneself, it could be pride of soul, no fear, kind of that t-shirt, no fear, right? I can do anything. The idea of a pride of soul. And lastly, is dullness, which St. Thomas uses the Celts as an example, the CELT. Um, kind of would be offensive today if there were Celts who were around to be offended by it. But this idea that they are fearless warriors in some regards, right? You get a sense of that within St. Thomas's writing, that they're fearless warriors, almost like what we would think of today as the Spartans, the 300 versus the whole world. Um, uh, they're just they're afraid of nothing. They go into battle. Somebody beats them on the head. They don't even care. They don't even flinch. They're just some ways to look at this as ignorant of fear. They're too stupid to be afraid. That's really the mindset St. Thomas is depicting within here. Right? They're just barbarians, right? These barbarians that are just so stupid. Um, is his idea of the Celts. Um, and St. Thomas says they can be excused. They can be excused from this one being sinful if they're just that stupid, right? If they're so stupid, they could never learn to not be that stupid. Uh, Clearly, a view of barbarian world, right? This idea that the barbarians might not be even capable of being civilized. They might have no fear, invincible ignorance. And lastly, it's only two articles. Second article, um, is fearlessness opposed to fortitude? So remember, fortitude is having that courage to make it, even to the point of death, right? Even to death, even to martyrdom. Uh, so can fearlessness, how that seems like that would get a person to death, right? So how is it opposed to fortitude? Thomas says, hence it belongs to not what he fortitude should not be to fortitude that man should moderate his fear according to reason, namely, he should fear what he ought and when he ought, and so forth. So, if proper fear, ordered fear, is healthy. If you do not have ordered fear, um, if your fearlessness is without reason, then it will not get you to the right place. So fortitude is about getting us to the proper ends. Right? Fortitude is not letting the irascible appetites get in the way of reaching our rational ends, our final ends. So anything that gets in the way of that, too much fear is wrong. Not enough fear so that we get distracted, don't make it. That also can be opposed to fortitude. And interesting, wherefore, just as timidity is opposed to fortitude by excess of fear, insofar as a man fears uh, what he ought not, and as he ought not, so too fearlessness is opposed, therefore, by deficiency of fear, insofar as a man fears ought to what he ought to fear. So it's this idea of uh, you should shun what you ought to shun, and you should not shun what you should not shun. Um, Again, this is quite simple in principle. Much as fear is either an excess or deficiency, fearlessness is the equal and opposite excess or deficiency. Therefore, it gets in the way of the person meeting their final ends. Therefore, it is opposed to fortitude. Fortitude, being a virtue, is the right path. It should be the proper amount of courage to get us to our final ends. So clearly, fearlessness can be a sin. In, Deficiency in properly ordered fear, and fearlessness can be opposed to virtue because fortitude is the virtue, and this would be a deficiency in the virtue. So that's all we have on fearlessness. Next, we will get into daring, which is very similar in many ways.